Time? Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Neil Facina, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as the president of Okanagan College. Before we get started in this evening's forum, I'd like to recognize that our KLO campus here in Kelowna is located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Syilx Okanagan people. I also want to recognize that up in Salmon Arm, our campus is located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Secwepemc. And then in our Revelstoke Center is located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Secwepemc, the Sinixt, the Ktunaxa, and the Syilx Okanagan people. And with luck, everyone, on a week leading up to the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, I hope that as you hear land acknowledgements, that you reflect on what they mean to you and to the importance of those acknowledgements to this incredible place that we get to call home. And in recognition of the National Week of Truth and Reconciliation, I would like to invite anyone that is interested to come back to campus tomorrow afternoon at about 2:15 p.m., in which we will be hosting a flag lowering ceremony here on our KLO campus, just outside of this building, again in recognition of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on Friday. So everyone, I have to tell you, I'm incredibly thrilled to be hosting this debate here at Okanagan College. I want to welcome our candidates, and I want to welcome our audience. This is the most number of people we've seen in this theater in 3 years. It's awesome. So I also want to thank all of the incredible students at UBC's Okanagan campus, as well as those of OC, for providing our questions tonight. So as you can imagine, the youth in our community, both today and into the future, have got incredible insights and incredible questions for our candidates this evening. I'd also like to thank our friends at the CBC and the Sarah Penton and team, for being part of the Candidates Forum, and you'll meet Sarah here shortly. As you can imagine, those of us that are in higher education see the city of Kelowna and the region more broadly as a city of learning. And Kelowna is incredibly blessed to be able to have two exceptional post-secondary institutions in one location. A city of this size doesn't often get to brag about that. And together, our friends at UBC Okanagan and Okanagan College are incredibly committed to creating a city and a region in which learning, innovation, and even municipal debate can take place. At OC, we believe in supporting lifelong learning, something we call K to Gray. And part of this is having events like this in which we can engage with the community on topics that matter to the community and influence how our current and future decision makers are thinking. And without further ado, it brings me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to you a colleague and a friend, the principal of the University of British Columbia Okanagan campus, Leslie Cormack.
I always have to adjust my microphone after Neil has spoken. Thank you, Neil. It is indeed a great pleasure to be here tonight. This is such an important event for Kelowna and for all of us. You know, municipal politics is one of the last great places of true democracy. It's a place where it's the most representative form of government. It is dealing with things that we all deal with every day, but it is dealing with it in a nonpartisan, collaborative nature. This is a place where things can be discussed, where ideas can be tested and tried, and in the end, we come to consensus. Sometimes in a hard way, sometimes through lots of difficult conversations, but it really is an amazing form of government. And you know, open discussion, I think, is really crucial to the process of municipal government and to the process of choosing the next leader of this municipal government. And that's why it's so important that you are all here. Our next mayor is in the room. You'll hear all of their thoughts. They'll hear your thoughts, and you will hear their thoughts as we all participate in the conversation. And hopefully today's conversation will help shape your decisions about what you're going to do as a voter, and their decisions about the kind of Kelowna that we all want to live in. Creating a space for debate, I think, is one of the most important things that post-secondary institutions can do. We've come to a world that is so polarized, where it's so difficult to have hard conversations where people can disagree with one another. And I believe really fundamentally that post-secondary institutions are places that should hold that space to make more complex the kind of issues that it's easy to have easy answers for, but almost every answer needs to be complex, needs to be hard. And so this is exactly what we need to be doing. And more than ever, I think our society needs those kinds of conversations. We need to be able to hear each other, to disagree civilly, to learn, to change, to argue our own position, come away with shared understandings. And so forums like these, I think, are really essential for that kind of exchange. I hope that we can change our minds, learn other people's points of view, and move forward with a better shared understanding. I look forward, as I'm sure all of you do, to hearing from all the candidates on the themes that are being put forward for today's debate, including affordability, which we know is important to all of us, including our students. In fact, I'm delighted that student voices will be at the front and center of today's debate. Students, you know, are directly affected by municipal decisions, both now and in the future, as so many of our graduates choose to remain here after graduation and help build our community. So I want to thank Neil and the Okanagan College and all the team, including the CBC, for a great event, hosting us here in this collaborative situation, and to Sarah Penton for serving as our moderator. Thank you all for being here today and participating in democracy. It's quite an incredible thing that we're all doing. So thank you all, and over to Sarah.
Thank you very much, Leslie and Neil. We're very much looking forward to this conversation. My name is Sarah Penton. I host the afternoon program for CBC Radio. We broadcast all throughout the interior and the north. My water bottle's going to fall on the floor. So it's really nice because normally we're covering the Caribou and the Kootenays all the way up to the North Coast and of course through the Okanagan. But today we're talking about Kelowna and the issues that are important to Kelowna. So we're really grateful that everybody could come. Grateful that all 5 of our mayoral candidates could be here as well. And I also want to take an opportunity to welcome the viewers on the UBCO YouTube channel. If anybody would like to watch this again later or share it, it's all being recorded. So you head to the UBCO YouTube channel and you'll be able to review any answers, share them as much as you like. So that'll be available as soon as we are finished. So this is kind of great because this is the first time all 5 mayoral candidates have actually squared off in this election campaign. So there's going to be some testing of the waters, seeing how things unfold. So we're grateful that all 5 of you are here. We have lots of questions to get to, so I'm going to give a brief introduction of all of our candidates and then give you a note about what the rules are. It's pretty simple, pretty straight ahead, and then we'll get right to the questions. So we've seated everybody in alphabetical order. We have Colin Basran immediately to my left. Colin Basran is our incumbent here in Kelowna, running for his 3rd term as mayor. Before that, served a term as city councillor. In his pre-political life, Mr. Basran was a realtor and a journalist. Again, we're keeping these very brief. Tom Dias, right next to Mr. Basran. It's his 2nd time running for mayor in the mayor's chair in Kelowna. He's the president of TD Benefits, past president of the Kelowna Chamber of Commerce, and was also the chair of Kelowna's 2020 Memorial Cup bid. David Habib in the center. Mr. Habib has been a business owner in Kelowna as well. He currently manages the Liquid Zoo nightclub. He's also a boxing coach, and this is his 1st time running for political office. Glendon Smedley next to Mr. Habib. Mr. Smedley's 2nd run for mayor in Kelowna. He also ran in 2014. He is a journeyman carpenter and builder. And finally, Silverado Socrates is a former cross-country and track distance runner, a member of the Canada West Sports Hall of Fame. She's run for mayor once before and also ran as an independent in the 2020 provincial election. Okay, so that's our candidates, the introductions, short and sweet. Now, quickly, the rules for today's debate. It's very straight ahead. As mentioned, all of the questions are coming directly from students, be they written comments or questions or on the video. So candidates, the video is behind you, but I'll make sure, you'll have to turn a little bit, but I'll make sure to recap what the questions are right afterwards. Every candidate is given 60 seconds for an answer, and Patty has got signs. So you can't miss them. So 60 seconds, we'll give you a warning at about 45, so you will have to keep your answers succinct. We have a lot of questions to get to. Each candidate has 2 cards to challenge, 2 challenge cards. So if a challenge card is given, I'll acknowledge it, and then we'll get to the challenge once everybody has given their answers. We'll give a first answer to Mr. Basran to our first question, and we'll go through. In our second question, Mr. Dias will give the first answer and go through, so we'll go through evenly all through, and we'll just keep on cycling through. It is so wonderful to have an in-person audience. It does my heart good. We brought our radio program on the road today to Okanagan College. It's the first time since the pandemic, so this is good for the soul to have everybody together. We do encourage respectful responses, and we're on a short timeline. So with that in mind, if you'd like to respond, in a polite manner, but we really do want to get to as many questions and answers as possible. So, that being said, shall we get to it? All right, we're just going to get right to the questions. Our first question is regarding transportation. And the reason we chose this, of course, is because of the news that came out today. Transit workers in Kelowna have set a strike deadline for October 5th, meaning no bus service 1 week from today if the union and First Transit, which is contracted by the city, don't come to an agreement. So CBC spoke with a union negotiator this morning on our morning program, who told us the conversations that they have had with the province indicate the province is not willing to put back to work legislation in effect. So the question is, what should the Mayor of Kelowna do as we approach a looming transit strike? First answer to you, Mr. Basran.
Yeah, thank you very much. I too want to acknowledge we're gathered today on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan people. So one of the things I've already done is written to the Minister of Labour to have him reconsider that decision to not legislate back to work. I also just want to say that I sympathize with our ATU. I believe that First Transit has really not treated them in a fair manner, and I support some of the things that they are asking for, and I would encourage First Transit to get back to the table and encourage them to find a fair settlement for our drivers who deserve it. And I will also continue to advocate for that essential service designation because we know so many people in our community rely on this transportation. It's their only form of getting around to get to their essential services, like whether it be school, doctor's appointment, you name it. So at the end of the day, it's all about advocacy and encouraging the two sides to come to a fair settlement, and then I'll also have further comments about the future of transit later.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dias.
This was something that had come up at a meeting I was at the other day, and the question came about with regards to the way the transit is run within this community. There's a layer of the City of Kelowna, then there's a management company that runs it, and then there's a BC Transit also. And their question was addressing the idea of the operational costs of that management company, whether or not there was a possibility of further negotiation, and whether I, as a mayor, would represent them in those discussions, because what they're looking at is wages, and they're looking at wage increases, but a lot of that additional funds that go to that management company, which I believe is located in England, isn't really dealing with this particular community. The next step to that is that we want to make certain that with transit, we're getting them into areas like industrial areas. That's been a request from business owners for a long time, and also UBCO students, that it ends up being the service gets to them properly so that we can deal with some of that traffic that's on our roads.
Thank you very much, Tom Dias. David Habib.
Thank you. In dealing with the transit situation, the way I feel, as having an employee that is a transit driver, I find it very difficult to believe that they actually feel that the wage these guys are getting is a sustainable wage that they can live off. It's absolutely required by our community, by the mayor of this community, to step forward and work closer at getting a negotiation. We can't afford to go without a bus service. We have to get them back to the table. We have to negotiate a fair wage, because without that, losing the transit losing the employees. There's more and more employees walking away from their jobs. I have 2 people that have worked for me that are transit drivers, and they're both saying, I can't afford to live there. I make more money working in a club, which I find shocking to believe when we're sitting there in a community where the majority of our people are taking the bus. We're encouraging them to take the bus. We need that transportation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Habib. Mr. Smedley.
I heard through the grapevine that it was something to do with not being paid overtime for work that they were doing, the transit workers, and I feel that if you work more than 8 hours, you should get your overtime. So simple as that. It's no brainer. They should just be able to get the money they deserve. And yeah, we do need our transit, and we do need also to upgrade it as well. And that's all for now, I guess.
Thank you very much, Glenn and Smedley. And Silverado Socrates.
First, I believe they have put a moratorium on the overtime. They were getting a pretty good wage overtime, but that was part of the strike action. As Mr. Dias said, the transit company is outside Canada. I think that we could be looking at hosting it within the regional district. I heard other places in BC do that. The regional district hires them and organizes it. Perhaps we could look into pension funds, matching funds for every year employed. That way we could be keeping workers that have been trained in Kelowna. There's so many more things that we could be being more creative in helping them and keeping them in our community, keeping us happy. I took the bus over here partway, a combination of bike and bus, and I've got to know a few of the bus drivers. They're really good people. There's a lot of turnover in that business. I imagine it's pretty stressful. I think it's a great training opportunity that sometimes people piggyback.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. Our next question, we're going to stick with transportation and transit, and I'm going to combine. We're going to start off with a video. We've got a video of Trent for our next question.
Hi, my name is Trent. I'm a history major at UBCO. I'm looking to ask the candidates what are they doing to encourage greener transportation up to the university?
Okay, so that's a question about greener transportation heading towards the university. And I'd like to combine it with another submitted question on that same front, the concern that students have over some lines being under capacity and UBCO students and Okanagan College students having to wait for 2-3 buses. So is there a way that the city can look to to utilize the bus routes for students better, to get them to the campuses, and can they do it in a greener way? We'll start with Mr. Dias.
We were lucky enough to meet with the UBC union representatives, and one of the things that they brought forwards to us was that transportation to the university is not adequate for the students at the university. They're saying that if they have a class in the morning to try to make a class or a specific time, that the transportation is not allowing them to get to their classes, so there's no way that they can rely on it. They wanted to basically make certain that that message was carried forward, because it was a big inconvenience for them with regards to them trying to get to their class and then also trying to get back to any type of employment that they would have. It basically forces them to drive, and they're having difficulty also with finding places to park at the university.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dias. Mr. Habib.
There's no question in my mind that as we look forward, we need to come up with some sort of rail transit that's a main hub from the university into the downtown core, maybe even into the west side. There's no question in my mind that we're there. We're big enough. We require it. I can tell you from personally transporting using my own bus, my own personal bus, to get students from the downtown, from the university to downtown and back to the university, there's desperation. These kids can't get anywhere. Parking at the university costs a fortune. I can tell you because I have 2 kids in the university. And I'm telling you without hesitation, we need to start looking forward, looking at newer, greener ways of transportation. I believe it's going to be a rail transit that connects the two from the university to the downtown core and potentially to the west side.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Habib. Mr. Smedley.
Yeah, there's systems out there. Being that the car is not the best form of transportation because you're running around on the ground. There's a PRT, which is personal rapid transit. There's, which if you Google search Skytran video, SKYTRAN, then you will see what I'm talking about. And then we could run that from downtown all the way along the rail trail, along Clement, right up to the university. And you could probably go downtown to the university in less than 5 minutes because it runs anywhere from 50 miles an hour to 200 miles an hour. So, I mean, and it's cheaper so than other systems. Then there's other things we can look at too.
Is that your final
I think
answer?
so.
Okay, thank you very
To a
much,
point.
Mr. Smedley. Ms. Socrates.
I would like to talk with more students and bus drivers about this. I suspect there could be some answers being formulated, talking with the people that are doing the transit and the people using it. Definitely working on the idea of higher speed transit from downtown to the Okanagan. I'd like to see something above ground, more like SkyTrain, opposed to putting in a new bus system near the Okanagan. But again, we should have community conversations about this, encouraged conversations, not just behind closed doors.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to affordability and the future.
Don't I get to answer?
Oh.
I knew this would happen.
Please.
I'm bad at orders. Mr. Bazran, greener transportation and better access for students.
Thank you. In my time as mayor, we've created 2 active transportation corridor accesses to UBCO, the Rail Trail and John Hindle Drive. We have also increased frequency on the 97, but our transit master plan, which we approved earlier this year, calls for the doubling of transit ridership in our community by 2040. So that means increasing our investment in service and infrastructure to make sure that we can do that. And that includes routes like the 97 Express. And we are also currently in a research project initiative with UBCO to utilize the rail trail for autonomous vehicles or alternate modes of transportation to connect the recently approved downtown campus to the North Campus. So there's a lot of really exciting things that are happening to create green ways for our students to get to UBCO. And I'm really excited about connecting those two, particularly with new technology like autonomous vehicles, which we have not seen utilized in our community before.
Thank you. My apologies. Try not to get it wrong again. We are going to move on now to affordability and the future of Kelowna. Our first question, oh, I'm really whiffing. I promise I'll get the hang of this.
I just, this idea of doubling transit by 2040, it reminds me a little bit of talking to a tourism minister person, and she suggested she'd like to double tourism. And then the HST was added, and I couldn't help but wonder if she expected the soldiers to run and carry weight. Like, doubling transit by 2040. I think it's great to encourage it, but it's kind of archaic the way it is right now. That autonomous, even the autonomous, you know, I think we gotta go different than going on the rail trail. We should be encouraging people to slow down. I don't know, just asking you.
Okay, that's time for 30 seconds. Thank you very much. My apologies, I'll keep my eyes out for these yellow flags. We are going to move on to a video question from Gina next.
Hi, my name is Gina. I'm taking the therapist assistant diploma at Okanagan College. I'm going to ask the candidates, what would you do about affordable living? Being a student in Kelowna is really hard right now, so what would you do to help us out?
Pretty straight ahead. Gina wants to know, as mayor, what would you do to help students out in Kelowna when it comes to housing? Mr. Habib, you're first.
I actually really have a serious issue with the way our community has gone when it comes to affordable housing. I see a ton of land in our community, especially between Gordon Drive, Benvolin, Springfield, KLO. There's a lot of vacant land that's farmland that's in the ALC that could easily be taken out. We got to go to war. We got to get that stuff out, and we got to convert it to affordable housing. There's many options, in my opinion. I've looked at container homes for backyards. And when I talk about container homes, I know students that are living 6 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment on the couch. I know people that are living in their cars that get up every morning and go to work. It's our requirement as a city to make sure we can allow these people to acquire affordable housing. There's many pathways to get there. There are many experts that can assist us, and I've communicated with many of them. I think we need to surround ourselves at a table and start having this dialogue with the experts and taking advantage of the land we have that's vacant, that's considered agricultural land that's not doing anything.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Habib. Mr. Smedley.
Yeah, the people of Kelowna have a right to speak freely about the issues of concern, because the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms speaks that with the 2 principles that we have, which is the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And being that the supremacy of God, well, it's like you got to have some empathy for what's going on with the fact the rents are high, and so we have to work with the people, giving them some hope that we can work with the issues that they'd like to bring forward, and we can discuss it, and can work with places like Society of Hope, and with the Rutland Business Association, the Downtown Business Association, and work to a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smedley. Ms. Socrates.
Well, I've been a landlord for many years with my old place, and I've had great experiences many times. I've heard there's a lot of houses in Kelowna that are sitting empty, and some of them, many of them, are even owned by the city of Kelowna. I had one next door to me that was sitting empty for 2 years. I was trying to be on the waiting list for that, and to see it just demolished later was very sad for me to see. There were 3 rooms. I'd seen that house, and I'd seen how hard the fellow worked to get it cleaned up to snuff, because he'd owned it, he'd rented there, and then the city ended up owning it. But besides from that, I know there's many people that have had horror stories, heard horror stories, or experienced them due to rental situations. So maybe we could be looking at some vetting programs of renters and bonuses for good landlords, and potentially respite. That may sound strange, but...
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. Mr. Bazran.
Well, certainly this is a huge concern, but this is a national issue. So we need to bring it down to what can council actually control. We can control the development approvals process and make sure that it's quick and easy for our developers to get housing to market. We can direct land use and where that housing goes through our official community plan so that there's no surprises. And we can also ensure that our development charges are fair to allow this development to occur. So last year we approved 3,175 housing units. Of those, 740 were purpose-built rentals, almost a quarter of those. And we got that done through our rental incentive program. But we can expand that rental incentive program to provide more missing middle housing, which is designated more for families. We also need to continue to invest in our Housing Opportunities Reserve Fund. This allows the City of Kelowna to partner with BC Housing on subsidized housing, supportive housing, complex care housing for people who are on our streets. We also need to continue to streamline the development approval process. We can speed the development process up through pre-zoning so that developers can go straight to a development permit application as opposed to a number of processes.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Dias.
Gina's question was one where it ends up being a lot of missing middle housing is happening within this community. There's been a lot of planning that has been done over the years, but there's still a lot of individuals who are missing housing. You know, we can reduce some of the barriers as in our with the municipality to start to build back townhomes and secondary suites. We recently saw carriage homes with an increase which went up by 800% locally to put in a carriage home. There was a number of local areas that I was walking through, and families that used to have 4 or 5 individuals within a house have now moved away, and there's only 2 individuals within that house. And one block that I walked through, 3 of them were going to look at putting in carriage homes, but with the increase in that cost, they chose not to put the carriage home in. We need to make it so that it's affordable for individuals to look at building those secondary residences within this community and not look at putting it upon other levels of government. We need to do it on a municipal level.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dias. We do have a challenge card that has been raised by Mr. Habib.
I just want to add that as a builder in this community, there are several residences that are bought from foreigners that are empty, that are vacant most of the year, and some of them are just occupied a month at a time. It's unfortunate that we haven't figured out a way, just like Vancouver did, to be cautious or add an extra tax for somebody who's going to buy a residence when we have so many local children, when I say children, I mean under 50, that don't have a place to reside. Sorry, I'm an old guy. But I want to say that, you know, it's a very serious issue when you get to see people with a mother living on a couch or having trouble sleeping in a place other than their car. And the problem is there's 30% of the condos in our community are vacant. Sorry.
All right, thank you very much for that, Mr. Habib. Okay, we are on to our next question. The first answer will go to Mr. Smedley. And this is still involving affordability and the future of Kelowna. Here is a video of Justin.
My name is Justin Key. I am a mechanical engineering student here at UBCO. I've got some questions concerning how the city is going to be expanding accessibly. Whether or not, you know, the city will be designed to be walkable, whether or not the housing that goes up in the next few years will be properly attainable by, you know, people like me just joining the workforce, not really able to put down a down payment on a massive house.
All right, so that was Justin talking about affordability, and he talked about a couple of points here. How to make sure the city expands responsibly and make sure that it's connected and walkable. But he also wanted to know about how Kelowna can expand in a sustainable way. So we've talked about affordability. If you can focus your answer on how Kelowna can expand in a sustainable way, that would be great. We'll start off with Glendon Smedley.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and that's good that you did mechanical engineering. So did I. I did back in the day, BCIT. Oops. And then, anyways, the sustainable way would be work with Society of Hope, BC Housing, and with the community, and learn about each other to see how we could move forward to create a sustainable city. But I mean, you can look at adding transportation, but then what type of transportation? And then we can, I'd have to give it some more thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smedley. Ms. Socrates.
Like the gentleman beside me, I'm sorry.
Glendon.
Glendon, yes. These are things I'd like to give more thought, but I think the city is doing a lot of really good things with the extension of walking, biking trails and along Ethel in different places. And I do like a certain extent in the idea of moving up, not sprawl. Encouraging communication between the students, and I'd like to see more places, more people being able to communicate with staff from the city in different areas of the city to be involved.
Thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. Mr. Bazran.
The goal of our newly approved OCP and my vision as mayor has always been to limit sprawl because we know it's costly for the environment, and as we grow as a city, it's also fiscally more costly to run and maintain our community. So I've always been an advocate for directing as much growth as we can over the next 20 years to our urban centers and the core area neighborhoods around that. connecting those urban centers with really good active transportation corridors and transit to make sure that people truly have a viable way to get around. Now, I know that there will always be a need for single-family homes, but we simply cannot have frequent transit running out to every corner of our neighborhood. It's not sustainable. But we can certainly direct as much growth as we can in our urban centers and core area neighborhoods and along transit corridors to allow our residents to get around more affordably, but also through the rental or incentive programs that we have to create more rental housing, as well as missing middle housing on those transit corridors to give families more viable options to move about our community in a more financially reasonable way has always been my vision as mayor. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bazran. Tom Dias, how should we make sure Kelowna expands in a sustainable way?
Well, we need to continue to incentivize missing middle housing. We need to stay with townhouses, legal suites, carriage houses, like I said, because what's happening with regards to a lot of the towers that are being approved everywhere, a couple of things, we won't see the impact on our infrastructure for years. And a lot of them, we look up at them, we all see that they're not all occupied. So what it's done for a lot of our community is create a situation where the costs have gone up, they're not occupied, they're not creating housing for our actual community. It is very important that we are aware of the fact that we want to keep neighborhoods together, but we also have to take into respect that we need to make sure that there is affordable housing, and a lot of that will come through the addition of RU7 lots and also the carriage houses, which I spoke about before, building them within neighborhoods that already exist.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dias. Mr. Habib.
I believe the question was, this young man was looking to determine whether he would be able to, after finishing school, be able to afford to live in this community. The way it's going now, it's not going to be a possibility for this young man and many young men, including children of my own. That's the responsibility of us to find land, to reduce DCCs, and make it affordable. All that's happened over the last several years is the cost of construction has gone through the roof. Now, I recognize that COVID has brought a new tang to everything, but I'll tell you what, the city has done the same thing. They've upped the cost repeatedly on DCCs as well as everything else, and it's getting to the point where we can't afford to build affordable housing. The RCMP are telling us they can't recruit members because they can't find affordable housing. Maybe the city needs to take a look at developing an area where we can put affordable housing out at a low to almost zero interest rate for people that are in our sectors like the RCMP, like doctors, like nurses. We're heading into a crunch that's going to be devastating when we can't apply housing for these individuals we need.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Habib. We have a challenge card that has been raised by Colin Bazran.
Development cost charges are the cost of infrastructure like road, sewer, and water that are required for new developments to take place. They're reviewed by independent third parties, but anyone who says that they want to reduce DCCs just means they're placing that infrastructure that we need and how to pay for it onto other people. We can't escape the cost of the infrastructure we need to grow. So saying lower DCCs just means that somebody else has to pay for the infrastructure we need for growth in our community. And so we need to obviously find different ways to deal with that than lowering DCCs.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bazran. Tom Dias has also raised a challenge card.
A good number of the community understand exactly what DCCs are. They're the charges that you pay to the city in order to be in the city and to develop within the city. And I think everybody is acceptable of the DCCs. Where the issue has come about is all of the variants that have been issued, the increases above the DCCs, those variances for somebody who went for a 12-story and now has a 25-story, but only pays regular DCCs and has not contributed anything back to our city with regards to additional to our infrastructure, to daycares, to grocery stores, anything along those lines.
Now, Mr. Habib, you've raised a challenge card as well. You only get two. This will be your second one?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I can just say this. When it comes to, I don't care if it's DCCs or whatever the charges are, That money that gets taken is not getting built into infrastructure. We haven't seen any development of infrastructure. We're having serious issues with infrastructure. The process of getting there, if we're not going to start now, this stuff's years down the road. It's not coming up tomorrow. Nothing's going to change in the short term. And all I can add is this. I paid $29,000 when I made an application to increase my capacity in lieu of parking. Where did it go? It didn't give me any more parking.
All right, that's time. Thank you very much, Mr. Habib. All right, we're going to switch gears and we're going to move on to homelessness and housing in our city. This is a submitted question from one of the students saying very much noticeable in most downtown areas that there are homeless and there's a homeless issue in our city. What can the Mayor of Kelowna do to address homelessness that has not already been done? We're starting off with Silverado Socrates.
Well, actually, a big part of my wanting to run is that homelessness and addictions are better prevented than cured. We've got a boat with a hole in it. We're bailing it out, and there's a reason people are getting tired. We got to fix that hole. Often, dysfunctional and stable families often continue to be either dysfunctional or stable, but more often, the dysfunctional ones negatively affect the stability. And this is also increasing our divide between the rich and the poor. We need to help people, be a better neighborhood. We want better neighbors. It's not just going to just happen magically. There's so much I could say, but I'm going to end it with that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. Mr. Bazran.
I believe that most people in our community want those who don't have a roof over their heads and who are suffering from mental health and addiction issues to get that roof over their heads and to get the treatment that they need to deal with their underlying issue. They also want those who are committing crimes to face consequences. But I think it's unrealistic to expect that we're just going to arrest somebody and they will be rehabilitated magically and just be put back out onto the street and somehow be rehabilitated. So we need to continue to push for beds, units, treatment, but also consequences for those who continue to break the law. And that's why I was so proud to stand with the provincial government last week on key recommendations that will help make reforms to our justice and healthcare systems to finally have people face the consequences they deserve if they break the law, but also to get the much needed help that they need to deal with their underlying mental health or addiction issue, which is the reason why they're on our streets in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bazran. Mr. Dias.
As we all know, homelessness has skyrocketed over the last 8 years. Just look at the rail trail. I had a conversation with a young mom whose daughter was coaching soccer at the Apple Bowl, and she will no longer let her daughter take the trail. She now rides through the brewery district in order to kind of get to the Apple Bowl. Homelessness, they're becoming entrenched within our community. And discussions on affordable housing don't deal with homelessness. We all know that homelessness is a complex issue that involves mental health, addictions, and poverty all intertwined. While much of the supports come from the province, we have heard a lot that it's the province who has to take care of this product. What we need is strong leadership within our community to realize that this is a problem with our community and to make a difference and move the dial on homelessness within our community.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dias. Mr. Habib.
I'm going to speak quickly because I've got a lot I want to say. 10 days ago, I was walking down Leon Avenue. There was about 10 or 12 homeless there. I was shooting a video for my campaign. I looked down and I saw a native young man. I looked down, he opened his eyes. It was about 8:39 in the morning, and I said, hey, can I talk to you? How you doing? He said, good, how are you? I said, can I talk to you for a minute? He said, yes. I said, what, if I could do anything to change your life right now, what would it be? And he looked at me and he said, nothing, because I gotta wanna get off this sidewalk just like everybody else here before you could help me. We talked. By the time I walked away, I looked at him and said I was proud of him about 4 or 5 times. I had tears in my eyes by the time I walked away. I'll tell you this. I said to this young man, this is where I work. If you ever want to make that change, come and see me. 3 days ago, this young man came to see me. Tomorrow, he's supposed to start a job and get a new place to live. I can tell you that if we take our time as a community, we get involved with these people's lives. These are somebody's child who went left instead of going right. We can help them. 15 to 20% of the people in our population that are on the street need to be in a facility to get care.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Habib. Get a lot in there. Mr. Smedley?
Yeah, I've worked with Metro Church. I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but you know, like the facilities that they have set up, like they got shower facilities, gathering area, and I was thinking if a city would get together and create a situation where they could put washroom facilities even along the rail trail to give some dignity and hope to the people that are on the street, and also like showers and things like that. And you could create a situation where you could have gathering areas in different parts of the city, and then help communicate with the people of the city. And in my type of city, segregation doesn't exist.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, I see a challenge card. Ms. Socrates, that's your second one?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say one of the biggest addictions is greed. I'm sure y'all have heard of rent evictions. I just heard again on a couple days ago about someone that was rent evicted. They've been given a few months, but still, it's going to be a challenge. The best, most efficient house in the world is if someone has 3 or 4 of the houses and no one gets along in it, it really doesn't matter. We need to learn to get along. An example of rent eviction is, oh, shoot.
Thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. Okay, we're going to move on to Truth and Reconciliation. Of course, on Friday is the second Truth and Reconciliation Day in Canada. And we have a video question and comment from Ren.
My name is Ren Yano. I go to the Criminal and Social Justice Program in Okanagan College, and my question is about truth and reconciliation. I would like to know what part you want Kelowna to play in the activation of truth and reconciliation and Indigenous hardships.
A little bit tough on the audio. Yeah. So Ren is asking, as we say, nearing the National Truth and Reconciliation Day, she wants to know what role does the city play in active education of truth and reconciliation and Indigenous hardship? So what role can the city play when it comes to active education of truth and reconciliation and Indigenous hardships? Mr. Basran, you're our first.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it starts within the organization first. So one of the things that we have done as an organization is implemented the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Report, and along with that comes annual reporting in terms of how we as an organization are progressing. So that means education and training and implementation of the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. It also means, though, that our staff-to-staff relations as well as political connections with WFN and the Okanagan Indian Band are strong. And we also have to make sure that we implement the UNDRIP and the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations within all of our city processes, so that it starts with education of our staff and it flows out from there, because we need to be looking at everything we do as a community through an Indigenous lens. And I have to say that I'm really looking forward to attending tomorrow's events and representing the city there, because I believe that reconciliation and good relationships with our Indigenous partners are absolutely crucial if we're to move forward as a community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Basran. Mr. Dias.
I would also like to say that I'm looking forward to the events tomorrow there, and then also Truth and Reconciliation Day on the 30th. But I do have to say that I'm certainly not an expert on truth and reconciliation. I will and will continue to rely on the expertise of people who have those lived experiences. I simply do not want to, presuppose that Indigenous people want me to kind of, understand exactly what they're going through with respect to their truth and reconciliation. My commitment is to continue to learn As mayor, my commitment would be continue to reach out and continue to learn what is important to them. I think that's one of the major differences, the engagement aspect of being able to speak with them, learn what is important to them, and learn what the city can do to make their life even that much better within this community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dias. Mr. Habib.
I can tell you the pathway for me is through education. I didn't know enough about this topic going in. I've learned a lot in the last few days when it's been front and center. The fact is that it hasn't been front and center for a long enough period that we recognize what's happening. I'm saying, in order for me to understand where we're going, and after communicating with individuals that I know, it's important for me because I know it's had a different impact on every different individual, how it's impacted them. And it's been a very big learning curve for me to understand that something that serious, we skipped it, we missed it, we didn't get it. And it took me a while to understand that these people are suffering. A lot of them are suffering, and it was interesting to me that I had my eyes closed and didn't get it. There's a lot of things going on in our community that need attention, and I didn't realize this is that serious of a problem. The education has been overwhelming.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Habib. Glendon Smedley.
Well, walking the walk is one way, and with my experience working with the Ministry of Children and Families, I had the opportunity to foster a couple kids, and one was Métis and the other one was First Nations. And so I grew up with them from age 2 and 1, and now they're teenagers, and I got to see firsthand everything to do with the Aboriginal community. And then I used to read this book to my kids. It's called The Value of Truth and Trust. And it's just you have to really understand where everybody's coming from with this truth and reconciliation. And I believe I got that experience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smedley. And Silverado Socrates.
I'm going to throw a different look at this. At one point, First Nations in Canada outnumbered non-Indigenous, and this is perhaps one reason why they were not given the vote. Lately, locals are becoming much more rare in Kelowna. I think the First Nation vote is somewhat being bought, and we now have new abuses present, including homeless and addiction-related. Everyone has a story. Self-regulation is important. First Nations solutions are happening with the Blue Ribbon and the Moose Hide Project. I'm proud to wear purple ribbon. And I think we can learn and be inspired to care and be compassionate within our own society and take them as an example in what they're doing. We can learn so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. Okay, we're moving on to our next question. It's a submitted question, a written question. BC's healthcare crisis continues to make headlines. Health, of course, is a provincial responsibility. What can the city do to attract physicians and nurse practitioners and healthcare professionals to Kelowna? Tom Dias, you have the first answer.
When I was with the Chamber of Commerce, we wrote a policy, and the policy was for physician extenders. And physician extenders was someone that would work alongside a physician. One of the things with physicians is they're limited to the number of patients that they can see within a day, and they're limited with regards to the revenue that they can receive. But there was the possibility of looking at doubling up their services if they were able to run alongside a physician extender. That individual would be able to kind of look at writing prescriptions and assisting that doctor. What's happened with COVID is one of the nice things that's happened with COVID is some of that has gone online. But I believe that if, as a municipality, if we were to continue to advocate as individuals and speak to our MLAs and look at seeking out and adding those physician extenders to physicians, it would make it good for them because they were the ones that actually helped us write the policy. It was important to them for them to be there.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dias. Mr. Habib,
Sorry, can you just repeat that question for me one time?
the question is talking about the healthcare crisis, and while healthcare is a provincial responsibility, the question is, what can the city of Kelowna do to attract more doctors and other healthcare professionals?
Thank you. I think it boils down to affordability. I can tell you from having family as a family member as a paramedic, as well as having family that works at the Kelowna General Hospital, we are in serious issue, not because we can't get extenders, no disrespect, Tom, but the issue we have is people are overworked, they're exhausted, they're fatigued. The people aren't coming because, again, we're back down to affordable housing. They can't afford to live here. They've come out of school after learning to make the world a better place, and they're spending thousands of dollars on student debt that's out of control. I know doctors that have paid 15 years of student debt. I know school teachers have done the same. I'm just saying to you, we need to come up with a system that grows them in our community through our system and puts them to work in our community, that allows them, whether it's a program that allows them to, for every year they work in our community, they pay less on their student debt. We pay a year, they pay a year. I don't know. We got to come up with some plans that are allowing them to live in the same community with a happy smile, because it's not happening.
All right, Mr. Habib, thank you very much. Glendon Smedley.
Healthcare, okay. You can, let's see, attracting more people?
The question is, what can we do, what can the city of Kelowna do to make Kelowna more attractive for, attract more doctors and other healthcare professionals?
Okay. Well, I think we should look at attracting doctors that understand the difference with the vaccination, whether you're unvaccinated or not, or vaccinated, you're still the same person, and and whether you wear a mask or whether you don't, because masks don't work really.
The question is actually about what the city can do to attract healthcare professionals.
Okay. Well, I think we can just keep attracting them, because it's like you just have to be open-minded on everything that's going on around in all of Canada.
All right, time is up. Silverado Socrates.
The physicians of BC, if not Canada, had a convention, addiction-related, at downtown Kelowna a couple years ago. I spoke with the husband of one and mentioned the idea of how heart disease and cancers are often very much stress-related, and we should be working on the idea of promoting peace to, again, reduce heart disease and cancer. Why aren't we focusing more on peace? He was interested, and I couldn't help but talk about Robin Williams was in a movie based on a real place called Soontyke. There's a waiting list of doctors and people to work there. They were all getting the same wage, whether you're a custodian or a doctor. Most doctors do want to care for people. If we showed that we really cared for our people, I think you would have a high demand of people wanting to be here, both police officers and doctors.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. Colin Basran.
In this case, advocacy is key. So this event is being hosted by two great post-secondary institutions. We can advocate for more training spaces for health-related jobs provided by those amazing institutions. We can also advocate to our federal government, who I'm a huge fan of immigration, but oftentimes we let people into this country who are highly skilled and trained, and we don't recognize their training. We have doctors who are doing things other than utilizing their skills. We can continue to make and diversify our economy, because one of the keys to attracting people here is making sure that their spouse or partner can also find a job in whatever field that they work in. So making sure we have a diverse economy that has opportunities for everybody. And lastly, I would say, and I agree with, is again the housing affordability piece. We need to make sure that Kelowna is an attractive and affordable place to live, but we also need to make sure that it continues to be this awesome place that we are so proud to live in, so that we will continue to attract the people we need to work in our hospitals and look after us when we need it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Basram. All right, we're on to our next question. This is involving food security, and we have a video clip.
Hi there, my name's Alessandra, and I'm in the Culinary Arts program at Okanagan College. My question to the candidates is, what are you going to do to help support food security in the Okanagan?
Okay, again, that was Alessandra, and she wants to know, what would you do as mayor to address food security in our region? Mr. Habib, you're first.
Good question. You know, I got to be honest and say the only thing I can tell you is I'm not educated enough to figure out that without having experts around me that can give me the advice I need going forward. I don't want to speak out of turn, and I'm not going to shoot from the hip on something that I'm not, I can't give you the proper answer to. I strongly suggest that that's what I'd do. I'd surround myself with capable professionals and experts to give me the advice I need to step forward. I think that's something that's lacking today. It's not a 8-person or 9-person job running council. I think you got to surround yourself with those teams, whether it's affordable housing, infrastructure, or anything else. And I'll add this to that list. It's a new one for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Habib. Glendon Smedley, food security.
Well, like having these satellite communities I was talking about to get to know the people in the community is important, but also I heard about the Kelowna Springs Golf Club, and they're talking about turning it into an industrial site, but if you fly over it, it looks pretty nice from the air. If it's an industrial site, I don't think so. But I was thinking if we turn that into a working farm, and then we can provide work for the homeless. We can also produce food to help with inflationary prices of food. I mean, it's a start, and it's a thing we can do. And also, we could build a camp of some sort that would facilitate that and create a work environment to help that farm exist.
Okay, thank you very much. Silverado Socrates.
I've wanted to work towards a contest promoting pharmacies, local pharmacies with an F, eating local foods and products. Small farms are being challenged right now. The idea of the packing house going south seems so ludicrous to me. I'd like to see and encourage the small farmer. Perhaps we can study the Jamaican village concept of village tourism. I'm with an organization called IIPT, which is the International Institute for Peace Through Tourism. And they have a great model that we could be working to support each other as small businesses. This is such a strong topic that we could be, again, being an example of how we can work together, supporting local with our young people, and perhaps even working the idea of sort of a Peace Corps, something along those lines, but working at farms and local.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. Mr. Bazran, when it comes to food security, what can the city do?
Yeah, thank you very much. One only needs to tour the farmers market to recognize how much we all value supporting local produce and food security. And the City of Kelowna does have an agricultural plan, which is aimed at increasing agricultural production and food security. Probably the biggest role we play is in protecting our ALR land. While it may have been a source of contention in the 70s when it was created, it has several benefits to our community, including producing local food. So we need to continue to protect ALR land, particularly the pressures that is put on it to use it for other uses, like industrial land. And we also need to continue to bolster tourism programs, like our farm-to-table programs, the farm-to-flight program that we introduced at the airport that introduces our local produce to people who are traveling in and out of the airport to be able to experience it that way. So there are a number of things that are being done on the local level to help support our local producers. And in the face of climate change, sourcing your food locally now is more important than ever.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bazran. And final answer to Mr. Dias.
I think the most important part of this is communication. We have agriculture areas like Kelowna Springs Golf and Country Club, which was mentioned. On the outside of it, it's all agricultural land. With that becoming industrial, the elevation of that, bringing that up about 4 to 5 feet, is going to flood that agricultural land. When we look at things like water supplies and our water districts, to communicate with those water districts. Those water districts are such a key element to our agriculture in those particular areas, and they're not feeling that they're being communicated with the city. The packing house, that was something that is an industry that has been in this town for over 100 years. It's an industry of 100 years and had over 100 individual employees that was working within it. And we did not, or the city did not, lobby hard enough to make concessions in order to keep that industry within this community. Those are huge agricultural things that, being a voice for the community, it is important to stand up and communicate accordingly.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dias. All right, we're burning through. Thank you very much for adhering to time. Much obliged. We're burning through our questions. This is wonderful. Just so we go over our challenge cards, Mr. Bazran, you have one left. Mr. Dias, you're saving yours too. Mr. Habib, you've used both of yours. Mr. Smedley, haven't used yours yet.
Yeah.
And Silverado. All right, just want to make sure you knew where we were at. Our next question is for Mr. Smedley. And I want to circle back to a question, especially because this campus at Okanagan College is so diverse. And this question came up a few times, and I want to make sure we get to it. International students pay much more for tuition fees. Would you be able to share current or future plans that would make it more realistic and manageable for incoming students who need to face living expenses and adjusting to a new country? Okay. First answer goes to Mr. Smedley. How to help international students adjust to living expenses and adjusting to a new country.
Well, I think the ESL program is pretty good for introducing international students to Canada, and that also helps introduce them to the school, which in turn they end up coming here at a later date, and that program helps like people who want to bring in a student to look after, so that the but I'd have to look at that a little bit more deeply to understand it more.
Okay, thank you very much, Glendon Smedley. Silverado Socrates next.
I think our programs are pretty good. I would need to talk to more international students. I talked to a couple just the other day that were part of that autonomous traffic on rail trail. They seem to be pretty happy with things as it is. Renting to a couple international grad students one year. One was from Cuba, one was from India. Amazing students, very dedicated to their studies, communicated well. I think we're doing okay. I'd have to talk to them to see what challenges they're facing.
Thank you. And the question also, I will say, part of it is about how to make Kelowna more accessible for international students when it comes to, again, it comes to cost of living, which is part of this question as well. Mr. Bazran.
Yeah, thank you. Difficult question, and this would be one I'd defer to my friends in the front row here, but certainly working with them to find creative ways to help with that. But I think at the end of the day, I'll narrow it down to how would we approach that with any new resident coming to our city? And we would do that through, again, creating a city that is diverse and inclusive, regardless of the color of your skin, how much money you have, who you choose to marry, or who you want to worship. And I think that starts with leadership, showing up to our pride marches, our Indigenous Day events, not just before elections, but all the time. And so I think we would just, again, continue to add programs that, again, encourage recreation. Arts and culture is another great way to unite community and bring people together. So make sure we have not only participatory programs, but also great arts and culture, artists and acts that people can, again, come together and share in, because it doesn't matter what language you speak or where you come from to enjoy those things.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bazran. Mr. Dias.
I think in order for this, or I know in order for the students to be able to reside within this community, like anything, they're watching their expenses. And their expenses come in a particular area, which are one of the major ones for them would be housing. So we go back to our discussion a little bit earlier to create that affordable housing for them. Looking at options so that we're creating affordable housing for them. The other one goes to transportation. building proper transportation lines so they do not have to take their cars to the university to make their classes, and they're able to make their jobs afterwards. There are some very simple things that municipally we can look at doing, but the question, I believe, read, what can we do to make it more affordable for them to live here? And the majority of their expenses would be around their accommodation and their transportation. That's where our focus needs to be in order to make it easier for them to live within our community.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dias. And finally to Mr. Habib, how to make Kelowna more affordable for international students as they move to our city.
Here's something that's a question in my mind. The university's building a 43-story, I believe, tower downtown. The concern I have is the cost of building in the downtown core a 43-story tower. In other words, it doesn't conform with the OCP at all. That went out the door. When we got a ton of land that's way more affordable out by UBCO that should be acquired, and this land, for the money they're spending downtown, they could probably build twice as many units to house these students instead of having to be in the downtown core. I'm not sure that I understand why we throw the OCP out the window, build a 43-story tower, when I bought into my neighborhood looking at the OCP and I knew there was going to be nothing under 20 or 25 or 26 stories. I mean over. And this whole thing of building in the downtown core really baffles me, especially like I say, that balance of that funds could go into transportation, putting a new pathway to get kids from the university to downtown to their existing jobs, but there's so much affordability in building out by the university today. Moving downtown just doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Habib. All right, we are nearing the end of our, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smedley.
Yeah, to add to the high buildings, those new tall buildings we got, and the many more that are supposed to come. Question I have is with the fire department, are they ready for it? And if a fire was to break out on the 15th floor, how would you scale that, and how many people could be rescued within an hour from the upper floors above the 15th floor? That's the kind of question I would be asking the fire department.
Okay, thank you very much. And now, my apologies. We are heading up to our last question, and candidates, I will also get you to keep in mind, I know, everybody gets closing statements. We're giving you all 2.5 minutes each. So keep that in mind, get your thoughts ready as we head towards our last question. This is also a video question.
Hello, my name is Anish Bhattacharjee. I'm a third-year management student at UBCO. I moved here to Kelowna about a year ago, and I've noticed a lot of changes in terms of the people here, the cultures present. So my question today is, do you plan on making this city a more welcoming city?
Okay, so some of you touched on that a little bit. The final question was, how do we make Kelowna a more welcoming city for international students, but for all? And the first answer goes to Ms. Socrates.
Well, that's a good question. I think addressing the homeless and treating them like people, that's a huge one. The rent eviction idea, I'd like to say what my previous statement was alluding to, and I didn't quite finish it. I was in the hospital last year a couple different times because of I broke my arm, had surgery. A month to the day broke it again. I had to get surgery again. Apparently you're not supposed to lift more than 5 pounds with a plate in your arm. But I overheard some people talking, and the one fellow was saying how he had a daughter that was taking horseback riding lessons, and he had a renter whose son was doing motorbike, and he figured he increased the rent. And so the guy complained, and then he did the rent eviction. He actually said that to someone. It was hard for me not to hear that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Bazran.
Yeah, thank you. I already touched on diversity and inclusion, but again, I'll point that out, and it starts from the top, and making sure that that is a priority in everything that we do. But I'll maybe just touch on a really great program that I'm proud of that came into existence in my first term as mayor, and that's called the Strong Neighborhoods Program. And that allows people in various neighborhoods to have block parties, to be able to get grants to bring the park and play structures and things to your neighborhood, because we know that strong neighborhoods where everybody knows each other become more welcoming neighborhoods, they become safer neighborhoods, and there's a sense of community when we bring neighbors together. And so I'm really proud of the Strong Neighbors program, and it's something that I will continue to advocate for in terms of funding for. And it's an easy way, too, for example, teens. There's also a teen grant funding available for teens to be able to do those very same things in their neighborhoods. So in my opinion, strong neighborhoods make for a stronger, safer community, and I would continue to advocate for things like the Strong Neighborhoods program to build on diversity and inclusion in Kelowna. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bazran. Mr. Dias, how to make Kelowna a more welcoming city?
Myself, like many of you, love Kelowna. It's my home, and it'll always be my home, and it's the home of my children and other family. I've had the privilege since the middle of June to walk around and basically almost try to knock on every door within this community. And one of the discussions that has come up regularly with individuals is a huge sense of disconnect and heart that has happened within this community. They see a lot of buildings being built, but they see the amenities that are available for the community and families shrinking. They have to kind of go outside of this community for them. We hear a lot of talk. We see a lot of things spoken, but there is that sense of community that is missed. It is basically going back to simple little things like sponsoring our neighborhood associations. There was recent events happen that within our community, and these associations were looking at small funding levels, and they were unable to obtain those small funding levels. Well, we built in the downtown city park something that cost over $50,000 and was not attended very well. We need to get back to that element of communication.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dias. And we have a challenge card raised by Mr. Bazran.
I just wanted to note that neighborhood associations are actually eligible for strong neighborhood grants. So if they are needing help with whatever their cause is or whatever they'd like to do to help champion, they have that funding available to them. So this notion that it's not available is in fact just not true. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Dias, got to use up that card.
The KLO Resident Association just recently had a situation where it was Meet the Candidates. They set up an organization, a neighborhood party, and the KLO Residents Association applied for that grant. They applied for $2,500 to try to make the event work and were turned down. So it may be there, but it doesn't seem to work very well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dias. My apologies.
No
We're supposed
worries.
to go through.
No worries.
Mr. Habib.
That gives me an extra minute, but that's okay. All I can tell people from personal experience, the number one thing that brings communities together and is very welcoming is sports. There's all kinds of sports in our communities that we should be bringing to our community. I've been a part of things right up to world competitions, and I can tell you, when you bring a positive sporting event to a community, it brings the community together. It's kind of like watching the Kelowna Rockets as they're getting into the playoffs. It seems to be a very strong community event. But there's so many sports in our community that aren't getting touched on, where we look out and we see there's so many participants. I just came back from the UK, and Kelowna had two competitors in there. Our the one competitor, very young in the sport, and I don't mean young in age, he was 27 years old, not only won the team trophy for Canada, won gold medal at the event, and won fighter of the tournament. It's not something we hear, but the UK people adopted this man as their son, and it was amazing what happens when you bring sport into a community and bring the people together. Unbelievable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Habib. Mr. Smedley.
You think she's related to me or what?
In 1905, I believe there was a saying called being fruitful and united. So that slogan, I guess, should carry on. Instead of being fruitful and towered, and then introduce, like, I like what these guys said, though. With the regards to the exercise, like having athletes doing their thing and doing the thing from Big White to across the lake swim, and I got to think about this some more, get my thoughts straight.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Smedley? Was that you? Sorry.
Yep.
You're still going?
That's good.
You done? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much to all the candidates. My apologies, Mr. Habib,
worries,
for
no worries, no
my
worries.
inability to keep things
We're
in
in
order.
this together.
We are going to have closing discussions and arguments, as I guess we'll call them, and we're going to keep going in the order that we've already been in. So, Mr. Bazran, you're first. You have 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. This has been really fantastic, and I just want to thank everybody who helped put this event on, those of you who made the effort to attend this evening, and those who are tuning in electronically. Again, I want to thank Dr. Facina and Dr. Cormack for their great leadership at their two institutions, and this is another great example of how they're collaborating to really make this community better. And I just am so proud to live in a community that has that spirit of collaboration. This is an exciting time for anyone who is furthering their education or gaining new skills in our community. They can utilize those skills in an ever-expanding local economy with one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. And you know what? I'm so proud of these students for choosing to get their education here, and it's my hope that after they finish whatever schooling they're taking, that they utilize those skills here in our community, because they're going to be in high demand. And I hope that this is a place that they continue to call home, where they end up raising a family if they so choose, and helping to make our community the progressive place that it is. And I also encourage any of those young people who are tuning in and who helped formulate the questions to recognize that Kelowna is the size that, you don't get lost in terms of how big it is. We are a really great community. We are a large size where we have all the great amenities of big city, but we still have that small city feel. And I hope that these students recognize that they can play an important part in shaping this community's future. And I love the fact that, and through these questions you can see it, these students care about diversity and inclusion. They're passionate about environment and mitigating climate change. They understand the need to build our community differently than we have in the past. And they recognize the importance of shopping local, supporting arts and culture, and living a lifestyle that prioritizes mental health just as much as physical health. They also believe in the power of community and making sure our most vulnerable residents have a roof over their heads and receive the care that they so desperately need. And I believe in those things too, which is I am choosing to seek a third term as your mayor. I also know that our students have concerns about housing affordability, as you've heard, transportation, and safety. As a parent of 2 young children, I share those same concerns. And that's why they will continue to be my top priorities in this next term. I want to show you who has a real vision and a real set of solutions, and not just wishful thinking to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bazran. Tom Dias, 2.5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Kelowna is no longer a small town. It's turning into a bigger city. And with us turning into a bigger city, we're beginning to see cracks in the system. When I announced that I was running, and years prior to that, I just engaged with speaking with individuals to try to find out what the concerns were for this community. Kelowna has the highest crime rate nationally. Kelowna has more traffic than we've ever seen, has more homelessness than we've ever seen. As we've come here today, we obviously hear the issues with respect to affordable housing, and also our tax rate is the highest, one of the highest, and higher than the top 10 cities within British Columbia. I've come into this position, I have business experience being in the insurance industry for over 37 years. I have sit on the Okanagan College board with regards to business course development, the Child Advocacy Center. I was one of the initial members of the Journey Home Committee, which was approved, my enrollment into that program by the mayor. I chaired the 2020 Memorial Cup bid and sat on the Kelowna Chamber of Commerce board for 10 years with 2 years as president. During that time, I spoke federally, provincially, and municipally with respect to policy. When Finance Minister Murnau and the Prime Minister came into town, I was asked to speak to them to try to get them to change their mind with regards to small business policy. I have decades of experience in business and decades of experience in organizations. My strength in leadership will be strong. My words will be true. I will work with other levels of government to take care of the cracks that we are seeing within this community now. I thank the college and the university for this evening, and I thank the rest of everyone up here at the table for being here this evening also, and I look forward to being your mayor of Kelowna.
Thank you very much, Tom Dias. David Habib, 2.5 minutes. The floor is yours.
I want to thank everybody for showing up today. I want to say this. I really got to get on this bandwagon to talk about the things that I think are critical. We have to recognize that having a roof over your head is a necessity, because the homelessness, the drug addiction issues, the crime, they're all integrated into people that are living on the street, don't have a place to go, and there's not a community program that has the hands to get the job done. You got to be on the street. I'm on the street every single day of the year till 2 or 3 in the morning. I see what goes on in our community. I communicate with people. I can say this quite comfortably. When we take the time and we get hands-on and we start dealing with the issues, we can address them. We can get them done. Here's the problem. We're number 1 when it comes to crime. Really? Why aren't we taking steps to get to number 2? Why is the distance between number 2 and number 1 getting further apart? Because we're not doing our job. The people in City Hall need to do a better job in communicating with the people, getting on the street and getting the job done. I can say comfortably that that's one thing I've taken on as myself. The reason I believe I've already won this is because I've been able to help so many people today. In the last 2 weeks, I've been addressed. I've stepped up and I went to Nickel Road to deal with the issue there for that community. We're on the doorsteps. I believe Friday night, those people are going to leave. That's a plus. They contacted the city, got no response. They contacted the mayor's office, got no response. The RCMP were there 36 times since November. Okay? They got no results. I was there an hour and a half, managed to negotiate a deal for them to leave on Friday. The young man that I met on the street, he's now going to work. His goal was to be a preacher to the other people on the street and help them and help them, and as well as himself, to get 1 or more off the street every single month. It's something we can all do as a community. If we come together as 160,000 people, we can make a difference. The fact is that the city hasn't done the job they need to do. The driver behind the seat today isn't getting the job done. The proud moment they got of going from number 1, number 2, it hasn't worked. We're not even number 2 in the country for crime. We're number 1. The distance is getting further, and that crime rate is because of homelessness, mental illness, drug addiction, the things we're not taking care of. We need to step up.
Time is up. Thank you very much, Mr. Hobie. Glendon Smedley, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for coming out tonight. I hope you'd vote for me, but we'll see how it goes. It's nice to be with you guys up here. I'd like to make a difference, especially for the non-voter. I'd like to see them get out and vote more. Might help me. And then, because the one thing I noticed is, like, the non-voter, they always seem to vote for the winner, and without a choice to where their vote will count. So they just let it happen, you know. But anyways, yeah, I believe the city needs to look at why $2 million was spent on a feasibility study back in 2014-15, and the other reason is, why is that bridge still got that 3rd lane shut down coming into Kelowna? I mean, the bridge was built when? It's like, and nothing's happened to it, and that lane could be opened and brought in and give it a 3rd lane all the way through on Harvey there. So that's one thing I would be looking at, to work with the provincial government, whoever needs to be looked at to get that done. And the other thing is working with the fire department to help them figure out how they're going to rescue people above 15 floors. We've got, there's several ways to do it. We can use a drone that rescues people, use a helicopter from the roof, or we can get the rig rats up there to run ropes at a 45-degree angle and run people down the side of the building. So, I mean, I still kind of worry about the people above the 15th floor, because, and I'm sure the fire department does too. So, but thank you for coming out tonight, and look forward to your vote.
Glendon Smedley, thank you very much. And Silverado Socrates.
Thank you for hosting this, and thank you all for coming out. I think it's fantastic. I actually ran for MLA a number of years ago for East Kelowna, and one of the reasons I ran is because I heard that the Liberals spent millions of dollars just on advertising. I was like, whoa, imagine if you put that behind a project. And I had a project in mind. It's interesting, you have to get 100 names for that, and I would go door to door. I went to strangers, met a lot of great people. I went along the college here and I asked a couple of students, I said that exact same. And the one said, my parents vote Liberal. And she wouldn't even give me a chance. I'd say, give me a chance to throw my hat in the ring, and she didn't want to because her parents voted Liberal. I was like, whoa. So the fact that you guys are listening here, that's fantastic. At the time I had 3 rental homes, 2 illegally rented, 1 was a crack house. I wanted to turn that former crack house into a stable home where people could be hooked on horses, local subsidized housing, and visitors, a homey kind of feeling. I met someone who'd planned to stay at a hostel, and she ended up staying with me a few days and helping out, and I ended up giving her another ride for helping me out. We kept in touch through email for a while. She was working, I believe, in Jasper or Banff. Unfortunately, people see what they see. They saw that former crack house. They didn't see anything different. Everyone's busy. They don't know what you're doing. I did wagon ride. I only got a couple people wanting to do it. And I had a busy business going on. And 2 illegally rented houses and a crack house. I didn't get much help from the city with that at all. A lot of headaches, actually. I did lose all 3 homes. Eventually, I managed to scrounge 10 cents on the dollar for my formerly paid off home. But the point is, like I said, people didn't see anything different. Let's see something different. I've got this tagline of world pace to world peace. I've got a song, Drunk on a Dream, and I hope y'all help me out with getting drunk on that dream and making some positive changes in this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Socrates. How's about that? 9:02, we kept to time. Thank you so much to all the candidates for coming out, and to the students who sent in questions, the emails, and the video questions. It's so important to hear the students' voices. Thank you very much to everybody who came out, and to UBCO and Okanagan College. You've been wonderful partners. You put on a great event. Don't forget to vote. October 15th is the day. It's an important part of democracy, and if there's anything that you saw during tonight's debate that you'd like to watch again, a reminder, it is on UBCO's YouTube channel. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Just for you, I talked to some firemen, and they had some concerns. You definitely got to be working on that.
I'm not very good at organizing, am I?
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Thank you.